Welcome to what is the third CSNSF Symposium. The Center for the Study of Natural Systems in the Family was founded in the early 1990s by Louise Rauseo and Victoria Harrison to provide resources for the study of Bowen theory, the sciences, and family systems to people in Texas. And it did not take long before people who live and work outside of Texas made their way to Houston to attend the conferences we've been privileged to hold. Louise Rauseo and I began planning this meeting about a year ago and have been rewarded by the interest of many people throughout the country. Welcome to an audience that holds people who could all be on the program today. I look forward to the kind of conversations and thinking that will be stirred for you and by you, and your comments, questions for the presentations that are part of the program for the next 2 days. The timing of this conference is fortunate. When Louise Rauseo and I began to plan the meeting and she selected speakers and contacted them about their topics and themes, as she began to talk to Dr. Melvin Connor about what he could present from his rich body of research and writing, these topics were considered timeless and classical and universal. The relationship between man and our environment, and the relationship between humans and each other. The timing is only more fortunate now to set aside time to think about ways to understand our impact on the planet and our impact on each other and nature's messages to us. This is a time that will make it possible to address themes that run across parties, across generations, and across peoples. How to be more responsible for ourselves as members of the family and members of the family of man and participants in nature. I am reminded of a comment that I got to hear Jack Calhoun make in person. And Jack Calhoun was one of Dr. Bowen's dear friends, colleagues and collaborators, and one of the great population scientists at NIMH. And at one meeting, Dr. Calhoun was talking about his predictions for the future. And Dr. Calhoun was running predictions about the future of life on Earth in his research and writing and teaching at NIH. And Dr. Calhoun said that, if I can remember the quote as accurately as possible, that the future of human civilization depended on whether we would be able, whether 52% of the population would be able to be intellectually active. And that if 52% of the population failed to be intellectually active, that we would enter a dark ages like we had never known. That comment has reminded me year after year, day after day, to work on being part of the 2% of intellectually active humans on Earth. And I think this conference, as Louise Rauseo has designed it and conceived it, represents that effort and that ability to be intellectually active about topics and experiences that also stir plenty of emotional reactivity. So thank you. That was my introduction to the day. And let me introduce you to Louise Rauseo, who will take over from here on this day. Thank you. Thank you, Louise.
The story of getting to this was a meeting that we were supposed to figure out. We were going to have a symposium, and I don't remember this ever happening before, but we just were having a conversation on the phone, planning, and all of a sudden, my reminder in my brain said, "What about these meetings you've been doing in El Paso on societal process?" Well, they have stirred so much excitement for people there to really understand what Dr. Bowen was trying to speak about in his chapters that dealt with society. Chapters 13 and 18, and pretty soon I get them memorized. It's like they were speaking to something that at the border, at the U.S.-Mexico border, was so visible. And so it was an opportunity, because I was there and coming and going there, to see that. And then I realized that this is not just there. That's just a little place that you can see the social world in a very personal way. So I took the opportunity to say, well, what would happen if we try and turn the symposium into something on societal process? And societal regression was very high on the list of things that we could see. One of, where did we go here? Oh, okay. No arrow. Okay. The thing that I think people who don't know Bowen theory don't have a way of understanding how studying family systems would have anything to do with this issue of societal process. And then very quickly, Dr. Bowen lets you know that things that are happening in a family that stir up a family. Oh. And Dr. Bowen could let us know how quickly, in chapter 13, first of all, how the things that he was observing in families were the same things that he could observe in society. And he then took that and made it into something more concrete as another concept in his theory. So what we are, at this point, we're taking advantage of the experience that he brought, but also that many people who have been studying Bowen theory have been able to see how society behaves in the ways that are very comparable to family. So what I think the big thing for me is knowledge about anxiety as it lives in us, in me, in the society, and what does that look like, and what do people do about it? So Dr. Bowen was able to give some very, very concrete things. Now, looking at families, one of his things was, families will go along with the anxiety and doing little things to remedy, little things to fix it, something to make it a little better, feel a little better, not be quite so devastated by what tragedy is happening around you, which isn't. And that in staying with watching that in the family, he could see that eventually that family could run into a real big problem by just fixing the little pieces, but never addressing some of the underlying things that bring the anxiety. So obviously in society we do a lot of fixing little pieces, and I think this is an opportunity to look at what does it mean, to look at what's driving the anxiety around us, what's driving the anxiety in us and around us. So I was thinking one of the goals is to be able to recognize the anxiety and what drives it in us. And then what are the steps that we can take to make a difference? What I think the interesting thing, as we started to ask people who had been doing interesting work on their own, people who have now are speakers for today, asking them if they would be interested in doing something like this, and every one of them said something like, "Oh, this is the chance I've been waiting for. I want to do that. This is what I'm thinking about." And I said, "Oh my gosh, how lucky can you get, you know?" And some fabulous people, and some of you that could have done the same, you know. So that I think that was one of the driving forces for this thing to keep going, is that people who had an idea what Dr. Bowen was getting at, and they'd been trying to work it out in different parts of their world, in different parts of their own research. They were ready, and I swear they must have had their papers in hand, because they were ready to do it. And so we got a fabulous group of people bringing their experience and their knowledge of Bowen theory, which is just fabulous. Now, our guest speaker has been getting a head full of Dr. Bowen's thinking coming and going too, but he's done his own hard work and research. So this, I think, comes together in a way that is really both surprising and wonderful for me. What I think you find, if you spend time with some of the speakers, as we will too, that almost all of them have been really up close to the issues about the changes in the environment and how their research reflects some of the things that are happening both in the physical environment and also in the political, emotional environment that we live in today. And so that having the background of Bowen theory to bring to that is something that I suppose all of you have had background in Bowen theory to some extent. But I find that getting in depth to his work on societal process, on societal regression, really fills out the possibilities, the potential for Bowen theory, in seeing it so broadly as it is in families and in society. So at this point, the thing that also Dr. Bowen did well, and I think there are people here who are doing it, is bringing together science and evolution to help address some of the questions. And we will probably come up with answers here now that will be different from what Dr. Bowen could have done before 1990. That what he could see was different from what we can see now. And as Ms. Harrison says, a sense of the importance of it right now. So I think, well, this is just a little review, that as you study the work in society and you study your family, the behaviors that we observe related to anxiety are so familiar and so important. But what I think is what we're going to be seeing is, how are we coping with anxiety, with living with anxiety in this world? And what more can be done? I think there are probably some in the world places who have done better with coping with anxiety, and places who have done worse. But what can we learn from others who have managed to live with extreme anxiety and continue to think, continue to have some operating hypotheses about how to go about change? So that's, if I hope to leave here with new thoughts about what dealing with the anxious world that we live in, and science, and the work with Dr. Bowen's background, where will that take us? Will we be able to live a little more fully as humans with this as our background? And I think some of these speakers are going to have some great insights into that. Oh, I had a few of the things here that people are going to be addressing today. Sexual differentiation. Well, some of you may know my 24-year-old granddaughter helped me to come here. And it is interesting to hear what she's observing about men and women in this world. And it's from a perspective that I don't have. So we see the sexual differentiation, and we see ranking, and some of our speakers can address some of these. But one of the things that fascinates me, any of you recently see a recent PBS that addressed the different species that, like ants, that build these gigantic structures? And I can't remember. Do you remember the name of that? Oh, it was fabulous. And I thought, well, we're getting a preview of some of the work that one of our speakers is doing in terms of using the understanding of ant hierarchy, but ant modeling of behavior and what we can learn from them. So what the other thing I'll be able to address a little more, and hopefully a little more tomorrow, is the question about how we've used migration as an answer to some of the human dilemmas, and how that isn't going to work quite the same anymore. But so what basically, I think this is an effort to look at human adaptation overall, how we have adapted over time, and what it looks like, and where would we prefer to be going at this time. So I think oh yeah, if you haven't memorized chapter 13, I highly recommend it, because I don't know anything that addresses so clearly the challenges that are in front of us with ideas that you can use. So have fun with it. One of the things he was puzzling about was right after World War II, when society was really, had everything. We were living high, but anxious, and that was a puzzle. Now maybe it's not such a puzzle, but I think those are the kinds of things that I imagine you are going to be bringing as questions and your own observations over the years. So let's see where we go. I think. Oh, this was my late night thought. How do we manage anxiety? And I thought, one of our automatic ways is we preach and teach, and we tell people what to do. We curse, we blame, we triangle, and all of those are what comes out without even thinking. And I think that beyond that, we also have the ability, and I can observe, to pray, to meditate, to think, and to study. Takes us, I think, in a little different place than the first group. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this day immensely, and so glad to see you here to add to it. I know you will, and we'll be on with the day.